Oh, we're going.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I am just going to vamp for a little bit while we start to see people come in through the waiting room. And then we will be able to get started momentarily. So, thank you, everyone, for joining. My name is Kevin. I am on the Lettuce team. I want to welcome you all. Before we begin, I just want to give a quick overview of our session. The session's 40 minutes long, which will give us some time for a break in between. And also there will be time for Q&A at the end. So as Jenni presents, please type your questions into the Q&A box as they come to mind. If you see a question from someone else you like, you can give it a +1 or a like. To vote it up so we can see the most popular ones. And then we'll hold the questions until the end. And then I'll open up the floor with our speaker and we'll go through those. So we should have a good amount of time for them. So please, we want that to be, I think, like a big part of this session in particular. So without further delay, welcome to When to Hire Outside Help in Your Business of One. It's a little bit of an intro. When creative entrepreneurs feel stuck, they turn to Jenni Gritters. Jenni is a seasoned business coach and strategist. She has built her reputation by helping multi-passionate professionals transform their professional lives from scattered to strategic. With years of experience guiding entrepreneurs to build businesses that feel truly like home, she's become the go-to expert for solopreneurs looking for both purpose and profit. Jenni has worked with countless independent professionals, so she understands the unique challenges of building a business of one. And I think her insights have really also been shaped by her own journey and her deep commitment to helping creatives design businesses that align with their vision and with their lifestyle. She's been a great friend of Lettuce and has done a lot with our organization, so you're in for a great treat today. And today she's here to tackle one of the most nuanced challenges solos face of knowing exactly when and how to bring in support to propel your business forward. So without any more rambling from me, welcome Jenni.
Thank you. That was such a good little description. I'm going to need to steal it from you. So good. So welcome, y'all. I'm so excited to have you here. I'm Jenni. I'm a business coach and strategist, like you just heard. I would love to have you drop a little hello in the chat. If you have a moment, just tell me what kind of business you're running. I see we have a VA in here, so that always helps me kind of temperature check to direct this at y'all. So today we're talking about hiring support in a business of one. And this is a really edgy topic. I just want to say that up front, really nuanced, changing a lot at the moment because AI and automations are improving. So I want you to know this is an ongoing conversation, forever evolving. Okay. So here is our little agenda today. I always like, as Kevin said, to tell you a little bit about me and my background. I think that actually really helps y'all understand my perspective. I'm really obsessed with building a business that doesn't burn me out for a lot of important reasons. And so we're going to talk about that really briefly. I'm going to talk about what changed in my business when I decided to hire support. Then we're going to get at that question of when, like when's the moment when you need to start doing this? What kind of support do you need? Mindset notes we're going to cover really briefly at the end, and then we're going to do a Q&A. So like Kevin said, drop your questions in the Q&A box as we go so we don't lose them in the chat, and I will do my best to save about 15 minutes at the end so we can get to that. Okay. We're not going to go there yet. So let's talk a little bit about my story first. So I am both a coach and a strategist, which means I do a lot of mindset work with people, but I also do the tactical implementation support. I was just telling Kevin, I used to be a journalist. I was a journalist for a decade. I got laid off from the New York Times in 2018 and had this moment that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. Drop a 1 in the chat if you were laid off. I feel like that's like a pretty normal moment here, but I had this moment where I was like, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to that same thing. I don't want to be locked into a 9-to-5 anymore. So I decided I would try to go it on my own. I gave it 3 months, supposed to be an experiment, and that was in 2018. So obviously many years later, here I am. That first year, I doubled my revenue running a writing and editing consulting company, mostly mostly in the health and wellness space because I was a yoga teacher. And there have been lots of iterations of my business since then. Around 2020, I started a very popular podcast about running a business of one and all the business side of being a creative person, and then started coaching. I got a coaching certification out of that. Now, 3 years ago, if you had met me, I have two little kids. I have a 2.5-year-old and a 5-year-old. When my son was born, it was a month after the pandemic. And all of a sudden, I only had 15 hours a week to work. I had previously had like 40, and I was previously the person in every single job who was like the go-to, right? Like I was the one who could do everything. I could do it all by myself. I was working like two people's jobs, right? Like I think that's really important to note. A lot of you are hyper competent. And so hiring support is actually really challenging for us because we're used to having that identity marker of being the most competent person in the room. So that's who I was. Then I had a child, then the pandemic hit, and I could no longer work at that full capacity. So I hired an assistant. I paid her $200 a month. It was really small. She just did admin tasks for me. She did some research for some of my projects. Fast forward, a bunch of years later, my husband left his job, and we decided my business needed to turn up the dial and triple my revenue over the course of 3 or 4 months, up to 30K months. And as I'm sure many of you sitting here know, that's a big moment. And I very quickly realized I couldn't do it by myself. And so a lot of my revenue growth in the past few years has come from both structural support in the form of systems and processes and that moment of like bringing in people too, right? So I'm going to talk today about kind of like those big moments and also how you know when it's time to bring someone in. Okay. So my big approach to business is I want your business to feel sustainable, meaning you can run it for years and years without burning you out. And for a lot of the people I work with, they hit a 12 or 13K a month number and they realize they're hitting a ceiling. It's no longer going to be sustainable for them to be the only person who does this. Okay. So when do you bring in support? There's some definite symptoms I see in my coaching practice. And people usually come in for coaching at like this exact moment too, because they're overwhelmed. Okay. So number one, you've maybe hit capacity, either with the amount of money you can make or the amount of time you had. And this happened to me when I had a kid, right? I was all of a sudden like, can't bring in childcare. It's the pandemic. Like, what am I going to do about this? I hit a ceiling and I need to figure out how to scale without my hours being the key marker. Okay. Same thing when we decided we need to triple my revenue, like I didn't have triple the number of hours, right? So we had to move away from that model. The second thing is you may not be making progress on anything outside of your direct client work. That is a sign that you could also really use some support. So especially when it comes to business development, goals, marketing, the creative projects you want to have, if you're not touching those, it's a sign that there's a capacity issue going on and we need to support you through that. Okay. Number 3, if you're spending more than 25% of your time on admin, dear Lord, let us support you and bring in someone to help you with that because that's a lot of time. When we start out, it's really great actually to be the one who's working through all of the onboarding, offboarding, admin processes, but you're going to really quickly outgrow that. You're going to outgrow that so fast. Okay. The other bucket is a little bit more feelings based. So you're feeling resentful. You're feeling overwhelmed. You have a general sense of freeze. Like, oh my God, there's way too many things to do. I don't even know how to touch any of this, right? Those feelings are also a sign for me that we got to work with your capacity a little bit and bring in support. Okay. So I want to show you what my support structure looks like. These are 3 buckets that I recommend to almost everybody. If you click into the handouts tab, you can actually download these slides. So you don't have to take a million notes as you're listening to me. Okay. But 3 buckets. Okay. Practical support. In your business, you probably need some very tactical systems or human-based support. The first place I see people bringing in support is usually money. So bookkeeping, accounting, this whole event is sponsored by Lettuce, which covers a lot of that for you, helps you figure out some of those systems. So that could be a human, that could also be an automated system. Operations, that's another place where I see that being an easy first hire. So I'm a coach, right? I run a lot of events. I have a group coaching community. I have somebody who is my operations support person. She sets everything up for events. She does the customer service for my group coaching program, right? She's doing sort of the infrastructure pieces. I had a junior writer for a while. I also run a boutique content agency. I didn't mention that at the beginning, but I do need someone to help with the technical execution. Okay. And then CRMs and software, ways to get your people through the door in a really nice, coherent process. That is a level up I see people making pretty early on as well. Yeah, I love this question, Stephanie, or this comment, right? Someone told me it was a sign for them when they were thinking, why am I doing this? I should be doing something more important. I have some good questions about this on the next slide, but that's exactly it, right? Like, I can't get to the things that are the actual needle movers because there's almost too much chaos happening, okay? The second bucket is psychological support. And I actually think this one is underrated, but hugely important. I'm a coach, so obviously I believe that this is important that people invest in support, but I really think it can be a little bit grifty out there right now with coaching. So I want you to really vet the person and I want you to think about the ROI. So sometimes you need a coach, sometimes you need a strategy support person, sometimes you need a consultant, sometimes you need a therapist, sometimes you need peer support, but you do need people around you. And I'm going to talk about toxic self-reliance in a little bit because it's a real thing as a solopreneur, but the echo chamber of working alone, it's a no, y'all. It's not sustainable. Okay. So we need somebody in there supporting you. I always think it's great to mention, I have a coach who I pay roughly $24,000 a year. She's $2,000 a month. But last year, my revenue tripled. So obviously that expense was worth it. And a large part of it was due to the fact that I had her in my pocket. I could pick up the phone, could pick up the Voxer and say, hi, I really need to workshop this with you. My bounce back rate was faster. My strategy was cleaner. Okay. And then there's the bucket of lifestyle support, which I'll only touch on briefly, but I think is very, very important for you to consider. House cleaners, equitable division of labor, childcare, taking care of your body. Yeah, toxic self-reliance, real. We're going to talk about it, okay? Calendaring for spaciousness, like making sure that you're nourished. I always say to my clients, you can't do Olympic level work if you're not Olympic level nourished. Like think about an Olympic athlete who has a crap diet. Their body's not going to perform, right? So I want you to be nourished as well. That's why support is so important, okay? It's so important. It's like the scaffolding of your business house. So let's talk about human versus tool really quickly, because I think this is like the biggest question that I get asked when we're doing support structure work together. And that is like, is there an automation for this? So I think tools are really great for repeatable tasks or processes, things that you're doing over and over again, okay? Humans, on the other hand, you really do need a person, for example, to do customer service still in a business like mine, where all the questions are kind of ad hoc, or help me set up the back end of a program and help me think about the user experience, right? I need a person for that. So I think we get a little shiny object-y, frankly, about AI, and AI is a great tool, but it still does not entirely do what a person can do. So I will kind of like nod to each of these when I talk about these different categories. So contractors and employees. Drop a 1 in the chat if you have a contractor employee. Drop a 2 if you don't. Kind of curious if y'all have a person like this in your business yet. So 1 if you have a contractor or an employee, 2 if you do not have anybody human supporting you. 2, okay, no humans yet. Love it. Okay, so this is going to be a little level up for y'all, right? So I actually say the first thing I want you to hire is like a really small scope contractor, usually a VA. And mostly that's just to get your system used to the fact that you're actually going to trust somebody else. Okay. It can be $200 or $300 a month. It can be like 10 hours a month, right? How do you find this person? I actually prefer to find that person in my network, to ask around, to find a college student, an intern. That's what I always started with, someone who was early career and wanted to be doing what I was doing. You can also go through agencies, but really vet those agencies for me if you're going to hire a VA. So the way to figure out if you need this person is to spend a week tracking all of your work-related tasks. And at the end of the week, you circle the things that you don't need to be doing. Like I was sitting the other day designing a bunch of Canva graphics, and I was like, not the best use of my time. Best use of my time to go write a newsletter, to go market on LinkedIn, not to design Canva graphics. That's why I have someone else to do it, right? So make a little list for me. This is your homework assignment. If you take nothing else from today, make a list of the tasks you're doing. Circle the things that feel like, okay, that one is not me. I don't have to be doing that. And that's where we start with an assistant. So what kind of tasks can they do? Outlines, research, like I said, graphics on Canva. Yeah, Stephanie's biased on the VA thing, but I think this is a great first hire. I work with a lot of writers, so for them, it's more of a research assistant, maybe a writing assistant, right? So in that case, outlines and research, really great. Following up on late payments, right? Setting up courses and offers. Allows you to extend your capabilities, maybe polishing up your back-end systems, compiling outreach lists for marketing. We love a good Trello board where somebody's coming in and doing the research for you. Customer service is also great for this. Gathering client feedback, testimonials. It's just going to help your work look more polished. There's something about it when you got to let somebody else in, you're going to have to take it more seriously. Okay. So let's look at automated support and tools. So I would say look for replicable tasks. Like I said, things you're doing over and over again. My favorite place for you to start with this is onboarding and offboarding. So if you do not have a CRM that helps your clients move into working with you, especially if you're a consultant or coach, Dubsado, Paperbell, Honeybook, 21 Hats, you can choose, go test them out and see which one feels good to you. But I really want that to be one of the first things that you have. It walks people through contracts, invoices, and scheduling without you having to do anything. Calendly gets you a little bit of the way there. Okay. You could also, again, like have outtake forms, exit interview forms where you get testimonials from clients. I love a good financial dashboard as well. Lettuce is a great option for that. You could also do that if you have QuickBooks or Wave. It's going to show you a profit and loss. I think that's a great place for a tool. We also love a good IFTTT automation. If somebody sends me this email, respond to them with this thing. Canned emails can be great too, right? So this part doesn't have to actually be so complicated, but I really want you to pay attention to what basic tasks you're doing over and over again. And this is where ChatGPT, I think, can be helpful for almost like digesting some of your content and spitting out some things. Although as a writer, I really, really want you to be making sure that you are putting your eyes on it, because everybody can tell AI is not quite good enough to actually resonate with your audience yet. It doesn't feel human, and we have little spidey senses about that. It doesn't develop trust, and then it makes it hard to sell. Okay. Third bucket, mentorship, coaching, peer groups, strategic advising. I think this is huge when you're at an inflection point. So if you're at a point in your business where you're like, I call it one foot on the gas, one foot on the brakes, and you're like, like, am I ready to go forward? And I don't know, and I'm stuck. That's when you bring in this kind of support. Okay. It can look like a lot of different things. There are a lot of different options here. So I want you to journal about what you think you're moving towards. So for a lot of people, it's like, okay, I'm moving towards owning my brand a little bit more. I'm moving towards raising my prices. I'm moving towards pitching myself for bigger opportunities. What are you afraid of? And that helps us figure out what support you need. So this is a great little framework, because I think a lot of coaches, like coaching is kind of used as an umbrella term when there are really different approaches to this that I want you to think about when you're hiring someone. So mentorship is working with someone who's a couple years ahead of you. We love that if you just really need almost like witnessing support and feedback. But you have to remember that copying someone else's career rarely works. Copying their business rarely works. And so I want you to sort of learn from them, but not copy paste what they're doing, because that's where I see people then coming into my coaching room like totally stuck with a system they hate. Okay. Coaching is working with someone who's certified to ask you all sorts of reflective questions and really, frankly, get to the stuff that's under the stuff. I would say if you hate marketing, it's probably because you have a past of being told you were too loud or too whatever, too talkative. You're afraid of being exposed. You feel vulnerable. So then you're not going to market at all. We got to deal with the actual issue. The symptom is that you don't want to market. So that's coaching. Consulting or strategy support is really targeted at a certain skill set. So for example, I help people refine their business models. That is a very specific thing. So I'm a coach and a strategist. So if you need like a quick hit of like, I need someone to take a look at this and help me make a roadmap, that would be consulting. Therapy, you probably know, reflecting on past patterns, helping you move from dysfunctional to functional. And then I love peer support and think it doesn't get enough credit of like being in a room with people who get you. Part of this business, part of why this works. Okay. So just think about which one of those would feel really good for you. Drop in the chat for me, actually, which one of these like sparks interest for you. If you're like, yeah, I do need some other people support. I'm kind of tired of being in the echo chamber of my own brain. Which of these feels like a hell yes for you in this next level up in your business? Drop that in the chat for me. Is it coaching? Is it therapy? Mentorship and coaching. Good. Love it. Love it. I have a mentor, like I just mentioned, and I think it's incredible. Yeah, peer support is great for when you're like feeling pretty lonely. So lifestyle support is the last bucket, y'all, and that is, like I said, asking yourself what you need to be truly nourished. Looking at your calendar and saying, "Do I have time for this?" So it's been so interesting in my life, in my work. The piece about lifestyle support, like, and this is where I want to talk about mindset work. It's always been really challenging for me to accept help. And so I have a partner who loves to help, but I was unwilling to say, yeah, I'm actually going to reduce my number of, I only work 20 hours a week, y'all. And like, that's really important to me, but it took a while for me to actually have the permission to say, to do my best work, I actually need a lot of time to go wander around, because I do such laser focused work with people that I literally just need white space to like putz around in the woods. I live in the woods now. I used to live in a big city. This is what I mean about lifestyle support. Like, how do you support your body and your nervous system so you can work at your highest potential? That is really important. Okay. So when we talk about the mindset work around this, I actually think, y'all, this is the trickiest part. And when you ask questions, my guess is this is going to come up. Okay. So trust. Trust is a thing. Control is also a thing. Okay. And when we talk about working alone, I posted this on LinkedIn. A lot of us who work for ourselves had upbringings that were unstable. And so we're very used to the chaos that comes with business ownership. And it's a little bit of a blessing in disguise because it was hard when we were growing up. But now we're able to handle a lot. But we get really in this twisty place of toxic self-reliance, meaning like I'm the one who has to do everything. I have to carry the boulder up the hill. It's all on me. And no one else can do it as well as I can. So I just have to do it all. And that's when I see people burn out really hard because they want to grow. They want to grow their revenue. They want to grow their business. They want to help more people. But they're like, the only way their brain knows to do it is by hauling the entire heavy backpack on their shoulders. So when I work with people in coaching, we're really interrogating these messages about quality, trust, and control, which really starts to be important when you're hiring a human in your business, when you're thinking about this. I was joking with one of my contractors. When I first hired her, I would not really ask her to do big or important things. And she was like, Jenni, you literally are paying me for these hours. Like, ask. But my nervous system felt like that was so unsafe. Like the quality was going to be bad. So here's what I want you to know. When you're hiring someone else, this is an entire new skill set. Most people have 3 roles. Well, there's 3 roles you would often play in a business. As a solopreneur, you get to play all 3. Okay. So you get to be the technician, you get to be the manager, and you get to be the strategist. And most people start to outgrow the technician piece, and that's where we hire support. But you're still going to be the manager and the strategist. Right now, you may just be a manager for yourself and the CEO of your business, right? And we need to give time for all 3 roles to develop. And so developing as a manager is just a new thing. It's a new edge. So when we start working with people, or even frankly, shopping things out to systems, I spent the first 3 months of 2024 basically doing scaffolding work in my business. So boring, but so important. Systems for people to onboard, calendar stuff, infrastructures for email sequences, right? Like I get a lot of people who jump in and want to pay for high level coaching. And it seems like it's right away to me, but they've actually worked through all of these resources I have that are lower ticket before getting there. And I'm not a part of that. But it took me 3 months to set up. Okay. So part of this is it's an investment. And at first it's going to feel harder before it feels easier. The second thing is we really get to take care on how we develop trust with people. Trust is not developed overnight, right? Like it's okay. This is your business, baby. We all know that. You love control. It's your house. But when you invite somebody into your house, you're not immediately going to be like, yeah, go check out all of my most vulnerable items. You're going to be like, no, let's have a dinner party at the table. Let's have a conversation. So you start with the little tasks, which is partially why I think you start with like the $200 VA work and then work your way up. Okay. This is all nervous system work. A lot of us do not feel safe to receive support. We're very good at giving it. That's like what we do in our businesses. Most of us really hard to receive it. And so for me, when I'm coaching people, it's usually baby steps. We're like really baby stepping into this. Okay. So let's, I want to do a little Q&A moment. So go ahead and do some thinking, drop some questions for me in the chat. Meanwhile, Kevin, will you share the little offer thing before we roll into questions?
Yes, I think Candace will hit. There we go. Do you
There
want
it
to talk about
is.
this a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So I do free business audits for folks. I think it's a great way for us to talk about what kind of support you need in your business, to look at what's happening at the present moment, and then figure out like what kind of, do you need coaching right now? Do you actually need peer support? Do you not need any of these things? So they're 20-minute calls, free for you. You can just click the button and sign up. But I do them on the phone while I'm walking around the woods, which I also always tell people. So take them as a walk and talk. But I'd love to chat with you if you want to hang out. So let's do some questions. Do we have any questions in here yet, Kevin?
I mean, personally, I have some questions.
Okay,
So
let's
I
do
can
it.
kick off with mine, but I would also really love, I think, just to hear from
Yes, we have about
the
10, 15 minutes.
rest of the group. So please jump in. I mean, I think this is, everyone should consider this um, their own time.
Mhm.
I think, I don't know. I think like a lot of folks struggle with the idea that like maybe like they're somehow failing if they're like
Mhm.
bringing in outside work. Is that something that you've ever seen come up before?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think it's like oh God, what if I don't have like it's I'm doing it wrong, right? So what I've learned is a couple things. Number one, you don't have to be everything in your business. There are things that we're good at and things that we're not good at. And the glory of having someone else like design my freebies and make my Canva workbooks look beautiful. I mean, I can't even tell you how lovely that is because it takes me about 10 times as long, right? So, first, I think it actually allows you to be more effective. But I think it's a little bit again of like a toxic self-reliance thing where we are taught in this culture that we got to do it ourselves by ourselves. Yeah, you're at the edge of a growth breakthrough usually. So I think you're exactly right, Stephanie. You're like at the edge, right? And this is an edgy conversation to have, right? So the short answer is no, you're not failing. But because of your previous conditioning, it may feel that way. And so we got to like look at that a little bit and then reframe it to say, but what if it actually means you can be more effective? What if it means you can serve more people? What if it means you can raise your prices? I mean, y'all, I work 20 hours a week. I make 30K months as a baseline now. And that was, I could not do that by myself. There's literally no way. So it actually allowed so much growth. But, I remember my body feeling shaky when I first hired someone.
Huh.
I felt
How did
dangerous.
you go through? I have a question.
Yeah.
And I think, coming into out of like my W-2 career, because I'm also
Mhm.
fractional, but before, talking about like toxic self-reliance, how do you talk to people? Maybe also, how did you go through this yourself, where you're giving up control over the first tasks? What are your expectations? Obviously, you are paying someone a fraction of what you are paid by a
Mhm.
client.
Mhm.
How do you decide what do you expect from that
From that
person?
person.
What is acceptable? What is not? How do you like going
Yeah.
through that for like the first time?
So interesting. I was talking to my coach about this the other day because I'm like, the amount I'm paying my contractor is so much different than the amount that I'm earning. And I almost feel guilty about that. And she's like, no, but Jenni, that person has 6 of you and that's their model. Like they've priced their model appropriately, like that they set the rate with you. So I mean, Kevin, it's a great question. How do you decide what to have them do? It's that first slide with those questions where you look at what you're doing every week and you circle what you either hate or doesn't require you. You make a little job description with some of those tasks. I'm a big fan of like Trello boards so that people are tracking their time. I do hourly retainers for the operations support work instead of like direct deliverable retainers because I need different things every month. But I think this is a practice thing. And you know, I like part of this is like walking yourself through learning how to delegate, which means you need time on your calendar every Monday or every Sunday to be like, what am I delegating this week? Right. Which you're not, and no one's used to doing that if you've never managed people before. So job description number one, but then you let it evolve as your business grows with that person. They get to, it's a conversation, right? Like they get in on it too. I feel like our VA representative in the room would be totally would have good things to say about this too. I'm seeing a lot of questions in here, but I'll let you
Yes, and
grab which one you want me to
let
take.
me sort of like hop over. I think,
Okay.
we'll go in order. We're
Okay.
hearing from Courtney here, just getting started in building my
Mhm.
own book of business. When do you think you recommend investing some of those time, energy, money into some of
Yep.
those tools that you mentioned, would you consider it to be a revenue goal? I'm sort of adding here, or
Mhm.
like, what are the
Yeah. How do
milestones
you know?
that you'd have folks look at?
Totally. Great question. So a couple things. Number one, I think you don't need onboarding systems or a financial tool until you have about 3 clients in the mix. For some people, that's 5. So you can get away with spreadsheets. You can get away with the DIY invoicing for like 6 months usually for most people. And that's fine at the beginning, frankly. But there's this thing I see, it's actually almost, it is tactical, but it's also mindset wise that when you decide to take this business seriously, a lot of us like got flung into this. Most people I work with are like, I was full time and then I got laid off, or the job was terrible, or the market changed, and now I'm doing this by myself. So when we fling into it, we're reactive. And there's this thing that happens when you move into intentionality that is a big deal. And part of that is setting up systems. So I really see when people are like, yeah, I'm actually going to go get my LLC. I'm going to get a financial software. I'm going to become an S Corp, these little pieces, it almost like professionalizes it in your own brain. So, Courtney, I think it's hard to say what the revenue amount is. If you're making over 5K a month, I definitely want you to have this, but I've even seen people say like, this helps me feel more official. So I hold my energetic differently, which means in sales calls, everything feels more polished, right? Which makes a big difference. So yeah, book a business audit with me. I can tell you what you exactly need.
Makes sense. I think that, this is sort of an interesting one. Shayna has one. As a fractional COO, CPO, I'm really having a hard time thinking through
Mhm.
how to outsource and hire in my work, given that most folks hire me and
Yes.
want to work directly with me. I think this sort of sits in a bucket for me. I'm just going to add on to your question because I
Yeah.
feel very similarly, where there's one part of it is like outsourcing the admin, but then the second
Mhm.
part of it is like outsourcing parts that were within your core competency. But
Yes. Yes.
um,
This
so
is
say what
so,
yeah.
yeah, this is so edgy. So, when I was working as a writer, I was like full-time writing, right? Like people, Shayna, were hiring me for my words. Like they didn't want me to like subcontract to someone else. That wasn't even allowed on my contracts. I couldn't have someone else write the words. So there were core competencies that I was contracted to deliver. But I could have people helping with research. I could have people helping with outlines. I could have people help with, you know, systematizing all different parts. So I think that's the first part you figure out. There is a question though about expansion, about, say, and this is where we have the conversation of like solopreneur to agency, solopreneur to, boutique studio type of vibe, right? So part of it's the branding for you, Shayna. So being a consulting agency, they're going to expect you to have a team. But being a solopreneur, working under your own brand, they're going to expect it's just you. I have had people do sales calls for me. I'm the coach, right? But I've had people do sales calls. In my group program, I have my operations assistant running co-working sessions for me and some tech support for folks. So I think you get to think about like where are the edges of things. That are going to make your job easier. So you're literally living only in your core competencies. But if you're really wanting to become an agency, that's a different conversation where people are bringing you on full spectrum, knowing it's not just you. And I also think, can I just say this? It's an ego thing too. Like we like to be, it's only me that you're hiring. And part of my learning has actually been that sometimes people get better results when they get some things from me and some things from other people I have hired. So this could also be like a cooperative model. If you've heard of people doing co-ops, it's like they're not in business together, but they'll go on a contract together. So maybe you're doing like consulting sessions, Shayna, but someone else is doing the reports, the data-driven analysis. So yeah, edgy question.
I think it's really interesting. I think Shayna, maybe another way to also, I'll sort of just like add on to something on this is like, they're hiring you, but part of that is like you as a manager, you as a leader. And if you're getting
Yes.
great things out of people you hire that they couldn't get out of people like that, that's valuable. And maybe
Yes.
you build that at like you build those people's hours at slightly lower if you really want to get into it. But also it's like, I don't know, it's outcome based. I don't
It
know.
is. It
I don't
is.
know
And
you, Shayna, but I think you're worth it.
it depends on what you're doing too, right? But I think that leadership conversation, that manager conversation, that like I'm bringing you a perspective. I agree, Shayna. Like for one-on-one coaching, it's me. I don't want you to. I think you're hiring me and get somebody else. That's probably the same for you with consulting. But It's the whole brand. Love what Kevin said. You're worth it. You're
Yeah,
worth getting support. You also can't function at your highest capacity if you don't have support as a consultant. Let me tell you, it's heavy
Um,
brain work.
I think one more is around like, I think, generating leads I mean, if you, let's say you don't have someone within your network who might be able to
Mhm.
help for something like social media marketing assistance.
Yes.
Um, Although I will say, this is Sarah Campbell's asking this, any advice
Mhm.
for leads about where to find someone who can
Where do you
provide
find these
social media
people?
marketing
Yep.
assistance? It would be in a short-term engagement, 3 months. I mean, you mentioned, yeah, I would be curious to sort of see what you might say to this.
Yeah, absolutely. This is always the question of like, where do I find the person? It depends on you and your world. So, where do you live? Is there a local university? Is there a local chamber of commerce? Is there a local co-working space? Is there a local business entrepreneur group? Post in there. That's where I've seen the best results, honestly, y'all. Versus like going through an agency. I just think the results are more varied versus if you can get somebody vetted in some way in your local community based on a referral. I love that for you. This is part of why peer networks are so powerful, because if you are connected to other people who are doing similar work to you, they are going to be able to refer you. Like I'm in a mastermind group with 10 women building businesses like mine. Not only does it help me think bigger about what's possible, but then they can refer me to people like this, right? So check in your world first. Create a job description rather than just being like, I need a social media marketing person. No, I need someone to support me with social media marketing. Here's the tasks it would be. Here's the hourly rate. Here's the the full term of it, and then send that job description to people. That's a different thing. Email me I've always done this, like send an email to my email with 2 paragraphs about you and your resume. And then I skim them and then I move it down to 5 people and then I interview 2, right? Like do that process for yourself. Take it seriously. But I would say I really heavily lean on that support structure. If you don't have that, then you look at agencies. So like VA agencies, social media agencies, there are a lot of agencies that do this, but I just want you to like triple vet them and really like gut check with yourself if it feels good.
Yeah, I really like that idea of like truly an old fashioned printout on a college campus or like
Yes.
posting on something
Yes.
like
I
that.
mean, and Sarah, I would say find somebody who wants to be where you're at, because what I've also traditionally been like, hey, come in and be in my business, but also learn about how this business functions. I will mentor you in the process of you being here. If it's more of like a low level task, that's a really great value add. And then honestly, those people just stay and grow with me or like help them grow their
Yeah.
careers. So it feels really, the reciprocity is there. It's more comfortable for a lot of people.
I think that's super interesting. I think another thing too is like, also as well, I think we should probably wrap up because we have 2 minutes, but I think another question is also like whether or not you get joy from that. Like if you feel
Mhm.
like you really love mentoring people and building them up, then like,
Yeah.
great, lean into that. But if you're like, that's kind of my nightmare and I don't want to be responsible for
Yeah.
someone's
Then don't
like
do it.
work
Yeah.
right now, then I think some
Yes.
of these like really strong VAs, like, Stephanie's mentioning or something like that, you might just want to pay a premium to not have to talk to someone about their career goals. And just like
Yes,
someone who's there to
absolutely.
do a job.
Absolutely. I mean, and here's what I know, and this is maybe like a good little like note to end on, Kevin. I know there's questions about like revenue and things. I want to encourage you all, follow me on LinkedIn, send me a message. We can talk about it. But I think the thing I would say to sort of wrap this up is like your business should not look like anybody else's. That is a recipe for drowning in shoulds. I always say should is could with shame attached. Okay. I don't want you to be doing obligation-based things. Those burn you out. And yes, of course, there are like some tasks in our businesses that sometimes feel like that, but that's where you may want to hire support. So this is a conversation. People are always like, well, tell me what you have and I'm going to copy paste it. No, where we need to figure out what you need to feel supported in your way, right? Like Kevin, like clean relationships. I don't want to have any small talk. Just come and do the tasks and leave. Amazing. I'm like, can we be friends? I want to know about your dog. Love that for me, right? It has to work for you. So my big takeaway with support is like, we're going to have to build, or it's like building a house. Like you're going to paint your kitchen a different color than I am. I want it to be supportive and fulfilling for you, for your life, for your moment. Also, I work with a lot of people who have chronic illness or children. Like that is a different situation. You're going to need different support in those moments than you would in other seasons of your life. So please, I beg of you, give yourself permission to make it yours. Whenever I do business modeling with people, no one's is the same. And that's on purpose. I think that doesn't get enough airspace in today's business building world. You think there's silver bullets. the best silver bullet I know is learning about yourself, practicing self-awareness.
Geez, you're giving my therapist a run for the money. I'm really stuck on should is could with shame attached.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I
this
know.
is
Write it on the
fabulous.
wall. Yeah,
I,
write it on
I
the
am going to
wall.
write it on the wall. Thank you, everyone. We are at time. Really appreciate everyone joining. Really appreciate everyone chatting with us. And like Jenni said, you can book a free business audit with her. Hope to see you in a session. So please take advantage of that. It's literally free.
Yeah. And pop into the handouts. My newsletter's listed in there. It's called the Sustainable Solopreneur. Also, it's free. Great place to kind of like learn from me, hear about some of these things. I just did one about internally and externally source safety and what feels safe to you and what doesn't. So it's both mindset things and really practical bits. So love to hang out with you there if you want to hang out with me. Thank you, Kevin.
Fabulous. Well,
Yes.
thank you, everybody. We'll see you in the next session. Enjoy your 10-minute break in between. And thank you so much, Jenni.
Yep, of course. Thanks all.
Fabulous.
Appreciate you.
Bye.
Bye.